great. Well, right now it's a great privilege to invite Adam Woods to come to the stage. He's going to be preaching. You know, I wanted to introduce Adam before he comes. Adam and Kendall are doing a fantastic job leading our youth ministry. Not only do they lead our youth ministry, they also lead our young adults ministry as well. And, I wanted to tell you a story about the first time we met, and you're standing by me now, so you're right here. So he wants me to stop speaking. But do you know what? The first time I met Adam, it was out in the foyer. I think we had been here in Bunbury 3 weeks. And I met Adam, and I just felt in my heart God say to me that you're going to be working with this guy one day. And so I invited him over to dinner that night, and him and Kendall, they came over to dinner. And then, just sharing hearts and just seeing what God was doing in their lives and seeing the whole journey. It was just so fun to hear what God was up to. And I said to him, do you know what? Let's go to the gym, because I knew he was a gym guy. So I'd been to a gym once or twice before, and I kind of wanted to seal the deal. God had spoken to me, and so I said, hey, I'll come, let's go to the gym together. He's like, yeah, we'll go to the gym together. I went once. He said he would come work for me, and I never went to the gym again. He still holds that against me, but we're so thankful for you, the gift and the call of God upon you and Kendall, and for all that you're doing. Come on, give him a big hand as he comes.
So the moral of that story is if Mark asked you to do something you enjoy, switch it up and do something that he may enjoy. But it's I'm so honored to be able to speak to you, and it's so awesome to hear what God's doing in your church, Tim and Mel. And I'm really excited because I'm speaking on generations today. Today, I wanted to encourage us as a church around generations, and it's such a poignant time for us as a church. Next week is our launch Sunday, and if you haven't heard about it, it's launch Sunday next week. But if you have heard about it, you may know that this has been a journey for us as a church. We've sowed into this, we've put blood, sweat, and tears into this build, and it's been about 2 years now. 2 years now of sowing into this, praying into this, and next week it's finally here. And it's just so awesome to have you guys and hear your heart about the next generation, just confirmation of what God is going to speak today. But I really feel today, church, that God's going to deposit people into your life through this sermon. God's going to be speaking to you about maybe people or groups or someone that you might want to disciple, someone that you may want to mentor you, or even a group that you need to be a part of. I really feel that, and to share that with you before I start. But, who knows? God is the God of generations. Am I right? And, if we look around for a second, if you just spin your head and swivel a little bit, we have multi-generations in this church, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And, I get to encourage us about generations, but I wanted to share some statistics with you guys before we start. Our kids program, they're out there right now. Our kids program is amazing, DBK. They're getting 75 kids on a Sunday morning each and every week. How amazing is that, They're just sowing into that, spreading the gospel through those kids. And we have a thriving young adults community meeting tonight. We have over 50 people regularly attending our young adults nights. And we have, 100 youth coming on a Friday night, each and every Friday night. Praise God. And we have 20 connect groups meeting regularly throughout the week. And we also have many other adults and seniors connect group meeting regularly throughout the week. How amazing is that? Can we give a praise to God for that? That's just, isn't God good? Isn't God good for what he does through us as people? And today, I don't want to say the wrong thing to start off. I don't want to be misjudged, but each and every one of you, although you may not like it, you fall into a generation category. And you may lie about your generation category, and that's okay. I won't judge you, but I split it up into a couple that I'll be talking about. We have the kids, we have youth, we have young adults, and then we have adults, and then we have seniors. And it's pretty simple. If you're a kid, you're out there right now, you're probably not listening to what I'm saying. If you're a young adult, mainly you're sitting up the front in this area here. But if you feel too old to be a young adult, you're probably not a young adult. Let me just put that out there. And to be honest, adults and seniors, I didn't really come up with anything because I didn't really want to get on your bad side before I even started speaking. But you know, before we get into a new building, when we step into this new building, you know, generations is going to be paramount. You know, those rooms are called Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3. And we have a huge role to play, church. We have a huge role and responsibility to play in this new build. And in Psalm 78, which is the main verse I'll be speaking on this morning, we read why this is important. And it will come up behind me, but I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It says this, "O my people, listen to my instructions. Open your ears to what I am saying, for I will speak to you in a parable. I will teach you hidden lessons from our past, stories we have heard and known, stories our ancestors handed down to us. We will not hide these truths from our children. We will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord, about his power and his mighty wonders. For he issued his laws to Jacob. He gave his instructions to Israel. He commanded our ancestors to teach them to their children, so the next generation might know them, even the children not yet born. And they in turn will teach their own children. So each generation should set its hope anew on God, not forgetting his glorious miracles and obeying his commands." What a beautiful chapter. And as I said before, we have a responsibility as a church and as people to share the gospel with the next generation, with people who come after us. Otherwise, it says here, if they don't tell of their glorious and mighty deeds, each generation has a responsibility to teach and to be taught about God. So right now, let me just pray for us, and then let's get into it. God, we just thank you that you are the God of generations. God, we thank you for this build. God, we thank you for what you're going to bring in and through it. God, we thank you that you're speaking right now. God, we just pray that you lay it on people's hearts and speak to them. In your name we pray. Amen. So, you know, this morning I thought I wanted to do a practical lesson to understand what I'm talking about generations. And, you know, the biggest way I can speak about generations is through fashion. And, you know, my family's here, so they'll attest to this. But, you know, my mum, she's quite the fashion guru. You know, she wears things and I think, why? What are you wearing? Like, what is that? But then people compliment her, "Oh, that's such a nice outfit." I'm like, who's speaking right now? You know, like I don't know about that. But you know, I think that some of those fashion traits have come to me, and you know, I think I'm a low-level fashionista. But you know, I'm so glad Mark shared a story, because I was sharing a story. But I'm going to share a story about him really quick. We love Pastor Mark, but you know, last week, I wore a questionable outfit. You know, I wore pants that are a little bit baggy. You know, who knows baggy pants are back in? Yeah. And actually, as soon as I walked in the door, someone from the older generation, I won't embarrass you, but said, "Whoa, those pants are so cool. It's so cool they're back in." You know, I gave that person a hug because I was like, "Thank you, someone noticed." You know, walked through, couple of people, all the young adults, that's such a cool outfit. Those pants are so cool. And I made my way down just this lane right here, and Pastor Mark was just standing around right about here. And I could see his eyes, you know, just eyeing me from the front, you know, and kind of like this, you know, a little bit of glare. And I said, "I know what he's going to say." And before he said anything, he just goes, "Bit baggy, aren't they?" But you know, generationally, fashion is different. And I wanted to show you what I mean. I put a couple of pictures together behind me. You know, the 1970s, if you were part of the 70s, give me a wave. I definitely wasn't, never want to be. You know, you can go to the next one. The 80s, you know, debatably even worse than the 70s. But some people still dress like that now and get compliments. I don't know. But then lastly, you know, let's put it to my generation, the 2000s. And another questionable outfit. But you know, you can take that off so people don't get distracted, because that's a pretty bad photo. But you know, the reason I speak about this is I wanted to show you how different every single generation is. What someone thinks may be amazing, the next generation thinks, "Why on earth would you wear that out in public?" And it's not because I want to, you know, say, "Oh, it was greater back then, it's greater now," or whatever. It's because, you know, we're all in different life stages and stages of life. And if we don't realize that as a church, we will never be able to grow and connect as a church. And, I think that as churches, as generations, each of us has a place and a purpose in a church. We come into churches, and maybe for young adults, we have a bit more time on our hands so we can serve more. Maybe as seniors, you may not have as much time, but then when you retire, you have more time to give. And, it just changes throughout our life. And I think that's quite a beautiful thing. But each of us has something to give and bring to the table. And just like fashion, we all think differently about what we may bring. And in Psalm 145, verse 4, in the NIV, it says this: "One generation commends your works to another. They tell of your mighty acts." But church, we are meant to be multi-generational. We are meant to be full of different generations, and we have different roles to play, like I said. But without one generation, if one generation misses out, the chain is broken. There's a missing link that cannot be filled by another generation, And God calls us and asks us to share wisdom, share stories, and teach the next generation about his mighty and wondrous deeds, and to lead the next generation. But not just to lead them, but to actually share our lives with them, And I know for a fact for myself, I've been blessed to be able to share my life with many different generations. A lot of you here and in churches gone before, I've been able to actually interconnect and share my life with that person. But, we hear this term multi-generational. Who's heard of the term multi-generational just before I start? I've heard this term for years and years and years, and I couldn't quite grasp it because, you can say you have a multi-generational church, but you may have numbers, you may have every age from 0 to 100, which would be, quite amazing to be honest. But it's all well and good to have generations in your church. But what is the purpose of having many generations if the generations do not mix together at all? If the generations don't interconnect, we can say we have a generational church. Look, we've got all these different ministries. We've got everyone under the sun. We've got everyone working together. But if we are not willing to grow together, if we are not willing to disciple each other, if we're not willing to gain wisdom and insight with others and work together for the kingdom, then you have the same problem that I've seen time and time again, and you may have seen as well. And that is further down the track, there will ultimately be a generation that misses out. The chain will be broken, the link of multi-generations will be broken, and the church ultimately suffers. When one generation gets looked over, and sometimes this isn't even our doing, personally, this isn't even the church's doing, but you have a gaping hole that is left, and a hole, again, that can't be filled by any other generation stepping in, because you aren't able to share and communicate, lead and grow with the generations past. And what this leaves is generations in our church, as I said before, yes. But we have generations who have no clue about how to connect with each other, about how to grow together. We have no idea of what the other is doing, all going their own way, which in turn provides almost zero benefit for us as a multi-generational church. And I'm 25 on Friday. I'm quite young, and I may not have been in the church as long as some of you. But I wanted to share a quick a thought with you and an idea that God's put on my heart for this build. And the biggest thing is that if we want to be a truly generational church stepping into this new build, we need to shift our thinking from multi-generational to intergenerational church ministry. And church, I wanted to share with you, there's a big difference between the two. And the more I look into it, it's mind-blowing, really. But there's a couple of different definitions that I'll go through. But the biggest point is that intergenerational church ministry seeks to pursue relationship. Relationship not only between others, but between groups. And that is something that, hands up, all of us are craving connection. All of us are craving that intimacy and connecting between groups, even with our own people, with God and with others. And here are some different generations of intergenerational churches and ministry. And I think they're just beautiful. They'll come up on the screen behind me. But the first one is a gathered group of multiple generations in meaningful relationships with one another, where all have the opportunity to teach and to learn from others. Intergenerational ministry seeks to embrace and capitalize on the gift each generation provides to each other in God's church. And its goal is to strategically build significant and purposeful interactions between the generations within the structures of a church. And I wanted to say to you today, church, this isn't about a specific ministry area. This isn't about a specific program or a group that we run. This should be a DNA of our church. This should be a philosophy that is ingrained in us as a church on Sundays, on Fridays, throughout the week. This should be something that we're seeking to build and grow in each and every facet of church. We don't just want generations communicating and mixing with each other, but actively fostering, building meaningful and impactful relationships in both parties' lives. We want to be bringing people from all generations into service and relationship and valuing each generation, as it says here, for the different things, the different gifts that they can bring to the table. And we have so many different people in this church. And a couple of weeks ago, Pastor Mark preached on the body of Christ, and even though we are all different, we're still one body, one church. In 1 Corinthians 12:12-14, it says this: just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we are all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we are all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. And the reason that we need to act as one body is because we are part of the greatest move of God that I've seen in a long, long time. As Tim and Mel just said, it has started with our younger generations. We've seen ministries explode in the last couple of years. If you haven't been a part of this church very long, both our DBK and our youth ministries has times themselves by 5 over the last 3 years. And praise God for that. That's not on our own doing. God's just doing amazing work through this city. Can we give him a praise actually for that? That's just a huge statistic that I wanted to share with you. But studies have shown that Christianity is on the rise in many different places. And I wanted to share with you this statistic is really interesting. But over the last 4 years, especially out of COVID, more adults, and specifically young adults, the amount that have said they have a personal commitment to follow Jesus has risen over 15%, and almost 20% in young adult men. The church is on the rise, church, especially in our younger generation. And possibly, for many of us, the greatest move of God, the greatest shift and revival we have seen in a long, long time. But for a long time, I've been part of youth groups. I've been a part of young adults ministries. And right now, we're witnessing a massive change, not only in the way of how many people are coming, but the way that young people can perceive and react to the gospel more than ever before. Young people aren't just coming to receive community. Young people are coming to receive and encounter Jesus in our very church, which is just such a beautiful thing to be a part of. And our church is forerunning with this. 2 years ago, we said, God's on the move. What are we going to do about it? We're going to extend the church. We're going to bring more spaces and places in that God can move in those buildings. That is why the launch party next week is so poignant for our church. We're on the cusp of something amazing, church. And the biggest reason that we're seeing this change in people is that people are craving a sense of belonging. People are craving a sense of relationship and discipleship, not only with each other, but with something deeper. And in this post by Christian Post, that I wanted to share with you, there's a report where he talks about why the church is growing, but also why it's changed from being declining in the past. And it says this, it says, part of the problem is that the church has largely shifted from Jesus' multiplication model of discipleship to an assimilation model. Success is too often measured by attendance and program participation rather than by disciple making. Many churches have unknowingly replaced Jesus' Great Commission with a functional Great Commission that sounds more like this. Go into all the world and make worship attenders, baptize them into small groups, teach them how to serve a few hours a month. But this is not what Jesus commanded. Jesus didn't say gather crowds and measure success by how many show up. He said, go and make disciples. The biblical Great Commission isn't about filling church buildings. It's about filling the world with disciple makers. When I read that, I was like, damn, that's a harsh reality that some of us might think of. We're not there to gather crowds. We're there to make disciples. And being an intergenerational church is about shifting and engaging all generations throughout church life as a whole. Like it says here, it's not just engaging them once every couple of weeks. It's about bringing them in so that it becomes a normal. We're all serving together becomes a normal. discipling generations becomes the standard that we operate on. And that's why I'm so thankful for people in our church that when someone gets saved, they quickly hook them up to disciple them. Or people that are already discipling, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's such a beautiful thing to see people work alongside one-on-one or in groups and disciple people. Because people like Ben and Beck who work on connections, they quickly get people interconnected into groups and Bible studies because that is what people are craving. They're craving that connection. They're craving that relationship both with God and with other like-minded individuals. And church, this isn't to say that we don't do this well. This isn't to say that we aren't an intergenerational church. It's about what can we do in the future to do this better so that this building out there, this building is not nullified. This building is the growth that we see in making more and more disciples, raising up leaders, raising up young people, raising up church planters in those 3 buildings behind us. This isn't about, we don't do this well, or maybe we could do this better. No, it's about let's work together to do this better for the kingdom. And I wanted to say, mostly today I've been talking to the young adults and to the youth of this church, but this is for all of us. This is for seniors, adults, young adults, even the kids in this church. Because older generations, you also have a part to play in this. In Deuteronomy 4 verse 9, it says this, "Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children." Wisdom and knowledge come from sharing what God has done in our life. That's why a testimony is so powerful. And whoever thinks that your testimony is not powerful, I'm here to tell you it is. No matter what God has done in your life, sharing your testimony with someone or what God has done, what stages of life have you been in, can change someone else's life. So no matter how big or small you think your testimony is, no matter if you've come from the ghetto to where we are now, or you've just been in church your whole life, your testimony has the power to change someone's life. But as adults and as seniors in church, we want to know, especially me as a young adult, I want to know what brought you out of that place, what you stood by, what people stood by you to get you through different parts of your life that we may be experiencing right now. I think that in our church, we have so many people who pioneered the way before us, which is such a beautiful thing. And I thank you. I take my hat off to you for what you have done. But make it known. Make it known to your children's and your children's children, to the generations that are ahead of you, whether that's adults, whether that's young adults. Make it known. But how do we practice this efficiently? How do we effectively disciple and mentor other people? And I wanted to share this analogy with you that someone shared with me recently, and it's such a simple way to remember how to do this. And that is that everyone needs a Paul, a Barnabas, and a Timothy. And if you haven't heard this principle I'm about to share with you is something super simple. But if you write it down and memorize it, I tell you what, church, let's see what God can do through here. And I think that for where people want to step into generations, if you want to take physical action after this message, this is where we can grow and really grow. And a Paul is first. A Paul represents someone that can mentor us. Someone we can learn from, to go for, to advise, to share stories. Like I said, make known to me what got you through that time. What helped you when you were younger. What things you've been through. What challenges you've been through. Because everyone needs a Paul in their life. Or many Pauls. But may we never become too proud to learn from others who came before us. That is my prayer always. I've asked, Kevin Plum, I don't know where he is, he usually sits on this side. Anyway, I asked Kevin Plum to mentor me, and this week, I was having a bit of just trouble with a couple of different niggles, not massive things, but, I sent him a message, "Hey man, can you just pray for me?" And he called me up, he said, "Look, let me just pray for you over the phone." And that gave me so much courage, church. Can we just honor Kevin Plum really quickly, someone who's gone before. But for anyone, if you are a youth, if you're a young adult, if you're even an adult in here, a mentor is the greatest thing that you can have for your spiritual life. An accountability partner who can work with and alongside you in all of your avenues of life. Because learning from people, mentors, have gone through it all. You may think, no one knows. No one knows what I'm going through right now. And I say to youth people all the time, they say, we had a kid once who said to me, "You have no idea what I'm going through." And I said, "I've been to school. I've been there. I do know what you're going through. I can help you with that if only you would let me. Having a mentor in your life, if only you let them. And people that mentor us are always meant to be someone who has gone before, someone who is more spiritually mature than maybe you are on your journey. And usually this comes with age, might I add. But there's an incredible amount of wealth and knowledge that can be gained from someone of faith who is older than you. Let me tell you that, church. But firstly, we need a Paul. Secondly, a Barnabas. We all need a Barnabas. And a Barnabas is a spiritual friend. And it's usually someone or some ones that are around the same age as you, who you can share life with, who you can have time to get together with, and someone who can encourage you and build you up, and is usually in similar or the same life circumstances. And church, I believe that we do this really well. You know, we have connect groups that are beautifully set up. If you're a young adult man, you know, you can come to my connect group. Trish and Ashley run an amazing connect group for young adult women. There's many adults connect groups. There's even a seniors connect group, which if you're not a part of, I encourage you, get a part of one of those connect groups. You know, being around similar, like-minded people is one of the best things that you can do for your faith, hands down. If you're not in a connect group, you are missing out, truly. But the name Barnabas actually means son of encouragement. And encouragement was his first function in Paul's life. When the newly converted Saul Paul came to the Christians at Jerusalem, they were afraid of him. They knew who he was, and they didn't want to actually have anything to do with him. But Barnabas was that person that actually built a bridge with Saul and the other Christians, vouching for the reality that he has changed for his faith and for his ministry. And you can read more about that in Acts 9. But Barnabas also may not see always eye to eye. You know, you may have different disagreements. Is someone that actually needs to challenge you, just as iron sharpens iron. It's someone that actually needs to grow alongside you. It can't be someone who always just agrees with you. You actually need someone who will walk alongside you and grow you in your spiritual life. And lastly, we have a Timothy. And this is the most crucial one. A Timothy is someone who you can actively disciple. The key word in that being actively. Someone who you want to invest a significant amount of time into to help grow and mold and work alongside in their spiritual journey of God. And I want to challenge you, when you disciple someone, church, if you've ever discipled someone, 9 times out of 10, you will grow just as much as the person you are discipling. Because you're learning how to disciple someone, but also God is doing a work inside you as you disciple the person that you're speaking to. And we can learn a lot from the story of Timothy. I encourage you to read it if you haven't already. I'll share a few short excerpts from it. But in 2 Timothy 2, it says this: "You then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also." Entrust to others also. Work alongside others also. Discipling generations is about building those relationships. It's not about bringing people together. It's not about drawing a crowd. It's not about even having multiple generations, although that does help. But it's not because we don't do this well. Again, it's about bringing those generations into connection, into mixing. And I think that as a church, there's always room for us to grow in this. There's never a point where we get to and, you know, there's a baseline we go, that's good, that's perfect right there. No, as a church, we can always foster, we can always grow this culture of intergenerational ministry, not only here on a Sunday, but in each and every one of each and every one of those groups throughout the week, and also in your personal lives. And I want us to see, like I said, young leaders being raised up in this church. I want to see people who are eager to church plant. I want to see youth who are being not only discipled by Kendall, myself, the leadership team at youth, but by people in this church actively sowing and discipling into these young people because they see something upon their life, just how Mark saw something upon my life, and that's why I'm here speaking to you today. You know, I never want to put an age gap. I never want to put an age cap, on people serving or on people discipling, because I think that there's something so beautiful to be gleaned by each and every person in this church right now. And as I said before, all of us are in a generation. We fall into one of these categories, whether we like it or not, whether we want to lie about it or not. But the biggest part about being intergeneration is just that, involving each and many generations in part of our church life every day to day. And when we look at the Bible, one of the best places we see this is in the early church. You know, they didn't just speak to one generation. They didn't just speak to one group and let it pass on. They didn't just rely on the adults and the young adults, the 20 to 40-year-olds, they will do all the work and everyone else will benefit. No, they gathered everyone together. They gathered generations together, taught the Bible, held prayer meetings, worshiped together, and life was done in community. And there's many times in the Bible where we can see these generations being talked to, and not just one generation, but all of a nation. All the generations gathered together or being sown into. But we see, especially after the new covenant was formed, when Moses was leading Israel, that the decree and the news was given to everyone. And that's actually a really important thing. In Deuteronomy 29 and in Deuteronomy 1, there is multi-generations talked to in an address. And the generations needed to hear what was being said, not only because it was important for the generations in their future, but because if they believed in an intergenerational relationship throughout their nation and throughout their nation, they had to change what was done in the past. They had to do a 180 from what was done in the past. And if they truly believed in an intergenerational nation, they had to work together to undo all these things that had been done. And that is only done through built relationships and connecting together all together. Even in Ephesians, we see Paul writing a letter to the church, and these letters would be read aloud to the community. And, parents love this verse, so I'll share it. But parents, you know what I'm talking about. My dad used to bring it up all the time. Ephesians 6, 1-4. Children, obey your parents because you belong to the Lord, for this is the right thing to do. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you, and you will have a long life on earth. Parents love that verse, but then they forget the next part, which I only read recently. Not recently, but I remembered recently. Verse 4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. My father was never a bad father, don't say that, but it would have been nice to quote that back to him from time to time, like verse, but that's okay. But just imagine for a second, just imagine in this address, just as, I may have missed that verse 4, just imagine if this address was only given to one generation. Just imagine if this address was only given to the fathers and they left this part out, Like we are talking to young people about obeying your father and mother, and they aren't even there to receive what is being said. And there's definitely spaces for age-appropriate groups. Like I said, we all need Barnabases in our life. We all need people that are similar age groups that we can spend time with our own generations. But this doesn't mean that we don't have to be ready to accept and create spaces for discipleship to happen throughout different generations. Generation should be a priority in our church, especially on a Sunday. Too many times, especially as young adults, I'm going to talk to the young adults really quick, and I might out myself a little bit here as well. Church ends and we all stand at the front chatting. We catch up on different things throughout our week. Maybe if we're feeling a little bit spicy on that morning, we'll go talk to one person outside of our generations, getting that quota, daily quota of getting one other person, and then we go to lunch with other young adults. And this is both the same with not only families, but adults, with seniors. We see that time and time again, but no one misses out. I want to say that no one misses out, but I'm not discouraging us from doing that. I want to encourage us. There are so many places here on a Sunday that we can sow into for different generations, where people can be sown into not only from a similar age, but different generations, encourage, disciple, champion one another here, especially on a Sunday. There's places that, yes, we can sow into people of our same generation. We have connect groups. Like I said, we have so many connect groups of different age groups. We have youth, we have young adults, we have seniors groups running all throughout the time. We have prayer ministries, prayer nights. But church, what would change? What would change in our church? What would change in our new build if maybe we put effort into speaking to a different generation on a Sunday? For those who fall into the seniors, what would it change if you freed up time for one person every 2 weeks to sow into, to guide, to disciple as a mentor? And young adults, what would it take to take time every 2 weeks to be mentored by, to grow and be discipled by someone outside of your generation, someone who has gone before and done it all before? That if, church, we were willing to have just one conversation with people from different generations just to start, think about the connection, the integration, and the intergenerational growth that would occur in this church as we walk into that new building, the relationships that would form, and ultimately the people who would be discipled and raised up in this church if we were willing to have conversations with people outside of our generations. How many more Timothys would we have? How many more Pauls would people seek out, church, if we were willing to disciple, to provide wisdom, to provide insight, and to seek wisdom from someone older if we're younger? And younger people are willing to put down their pride and seek advice and wisdom from someone older. And in Proverbs 15:22, it says this: plans go wrong for lack of advice, but many advisors bring success. Church, I wanted to share with you today, it is biblical to seek counsel. It is biblical to seek out people when you need help. You know, we are meant to learn and grow from those who have gone before us. We are meant to do that, church. Because generations are important in a church, because more than likely, I guarantee it, 100%, someone has gone through what you are going through right now, no matter what stage of life you're in. I guarantee you that if you spent time with someone outside of not only your generation, but if you shared something that you may be going through, church, more than likely, 100%, don't know if you can get any higher than that, someone will be going through someone will have gone through what you are going through. But an intergenerational church seeks counsel, seeks guidance, seeks wisdom from those who are older than ourselves. In 1 Peter 5, verse 5, it says, likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility towards one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Whatever stage of life we are in, we all need wisdom and guidance. That's a given. And that comes from people who have gone before us, people who are more spiritually mature. But an intergenerational church gives counsel just as much as it seeks counsel from others. And if you are the one to receive counsel from someone else, you should then share with another person. You should then be one to give to another generation. But on the other hand, I wanted to say, notice how it says wise counsel. It doesn't say someone who is older than you counsel. And you know, wisdom sometimes may be associated with age, and that's okay. But you know, wisdom is actually the ability to reflect on things that have gone before you. So do not neglect advice from someone that is given. So do not neglect advice from someone who may be younger than you. More often than not, you know, in youth group, kids will come up to me and share something with me that I had no idea about. You know, usually I don't tell them and thank them for that advice because I want to look smart. But you know, so many times they will share something with me, and I'll go, wow, I didn't even know that. You know, and that's not only just things of this world, but spiritual things as well. So do not neglect advice from someone who may be younger than you. And one of the last things I want to share with you is that, you know, pride is the enemy of learning and growing in Christ. And I think we can all attest to this. Like I said before, you know, who am I to be too proud to learn from someone who is older or younger than me? Who am I? And as we step into this new building, into new places and literally new spaces, our church is built on a beautiful community of faith-based individuals. You know, that is something that brings us all together. The one commonality that each and every one of us has is we are a community of faith-based individuals. We all sought out to be here today. And like I said, many of the things I've talked about today have been done maybe to a small scale, you know, maybe to a large scale in different areas, but they are being done already. But if we, church, if we are too proud, you know, if our pride gets in the way and we're not willing to learn, to grow, to change, to disciple with the season that God has placed upon this church, and especially on people's hearts, we will not only spiritually but physically slow down the growth, the discipleship, and the move of the kingdom that God has planned for this church. You know, we're stepping into something major here with this new build. Some of you might not even have anything to do with this build yet. But if our pride gets in the way, we'll be slowing down the kingdom with what God has given us. But church, I want to say to you today, if we are willing to lay down our pride And both younger generations, kids, adults, families, seniors are all willing to grow, to mix, to learn from, to disciple each other, and in ministry with God at our helm. Let's watch and see what God can do with this build. Let's watch what God will do in and through us, as His vessels, as an intergenerational church striving for His kingdom. Let's watch and see what God will do in us. So today I want to encourage you. I said at the start, God may be placing people upon your heart even right now. Seek out your Timothys. Seek out your Pauls. We all may know Barnabases in our life, but if you don't already, seek those people out. Seek out that wise counsel from others around you, because generations are meant to be in relationship. We're meant to be connected together. And now, church, I'd invite you to stand really quick. We're going to go into a time of reflection soon. But if we could close our eyes, bow our heads, if you want to lift your hands to heaven. I believe God is going to deposit something in different people's lives, even right now. It may be a Timothy, maybe a Paul, maybe a Barnabas that He wants you to seek out. But I believe God's already started putting these people on your heart. And I believe that today we're going to see, so many more people in discipleship, so many more people in relationship than we have ever seen before, and especially going into this next Sunday, which is in Launch Sunday. Right now, I just want to take 30 to 60 seconds. Just wait on God. Wait on God to bring someone into your mind.